Hello students, in this video we're going to do a 2023 end of year additional mathematics paper. This is a 2-hour 15 minutes paper and the total marks is 90 marks. Right, let's look at question 1, which is to solve the simultaneous equations. The equations have already been make y the subject in both equations. So all we need to do is just to equate them. So I'm just going to let equation 1 equals to equation 2. And I'm going to bring all the terms on the right to the left. So basically, I'm just going to add 3x on both sides and minus 5 on both sides. Right, and if I simplified it, I would have 5x squared minus 9x minus 18 equals to 0. And I can factorize it to get 5x. Okay, what are the factors of 18? Which could be right, you can actually use the calculator to help you to get the solutions. So if you use the calculator, the answer that you're given to two roots will be, one of them is x1 equals to negative 6 over 5. So you have to work backwards to make it a linear factor by multiplying 5 on both sides. And then adding 6 on both sides to convert it into a linear form. So the first linear factor will be 5x plus 6. And the second one, you are given the answer to be 5. So if you convert it into a linear factor, will be x minus 5 equals to 0. So the second factor will be x minus 5. Alright, so from there, we can proceed on to find the values of x. Wait, hang on, wrong. This is not 5, sorry. It's supposed to be 3. Okay, let me check again. So there will be 5x squared plus 6x minus 15. Yes, correct. So therefore, from here, x is equals to negative 6 over 5, or x equals to 3. Okay, and we're not done yet, because when these two simultaneous equations kind of intersect each other, the intersection point will comprise of the x coordinate and the y coordinates, right? So we're not done yet. So when x is equals to 3, right, you substitute into equation 1, you will get 5. You will get the y coordinates to be negative 4. And when x is equals to negative 6 over 5, substitute into equation 2 again. Alright, so therefore the solutions are (3, negative 4) and negative 6 over 5, 43 over 5. Alright, so that's how you solve question 1. Right, let's look at question 2a. So 2a, we're asked to evaluate the expression given without using a calculator. What it means is that you're not supposed to use the calculator to key in sine 20 to get 0.3420, and then key in 3 times cosine 70 to get 1.026 over 5 times sine 20 to get 1.710, and then you get the answer. No, you're not supposed to do that. This is what it means by without using a calculator. Alright, so if you don't use a calculator, right, then how do you actually evaluate this? Right, so if you were to examine the expression carefully, you see that the first term is in terms of sine, second term is also in terms of sine. The only thing, the third term in terms of sine, the only thing is this term here, the one that I circled for you. It's not in terms of sign, right? So that gives you an idea that you have to do some conversion, right? So what is the connection? So if you were to recall that we learned this trigo ratio in chapter 10, trigo functions. If you were to remember this thing that we learned, sine theta, it's half, right? If use Pythagoras theorem, this will give you square root 3, and this one is 90 minus theta, right? Right, so if you were to remember, sine theta is equals to half, right? And cosine 90 minus theta, cosine is adjacent over hypo, right? You also get half. So in other words, the value of sine theta is the same value as what you get by finding cosine bracket 90 minus theta. So likewise, cosine theta is the same, the value you get for cosine theta will be the same as the value you get when you find sine bracket 90 minus theta. And then for tangent theta, the answer you get will be 1 over tangent bracket 90 minus theta. So these are the three relationships that we have learned in the chapter 10 under trigonometry functions. So this is exactly what we're going to use to evaluate that. Right, so cosine 70 will be actually equals to sine bracket 90 minus 70. Right, and that will give us sine 20. So you will see that sine 20 is actually the common factor, which I can factorize it out. And my sine 20 divided by sine 20 will give me 1. 1 minus 3 will be negative 2. So the answer you get will be negative 2/5. Right, so this you need to remember. Right, so for 2b, you ask to state the values between which each of the following must lie. The principal value of sine inverse x. So basically this one you just have to memorize it. It's a rule. Alright, so sine inverse x, the range for sine inverse x is actually between greater or equal than 90 degrees, less than or equal, greater or equal than negative 90 degrees, or less than or equal than 90 degrees. You can also leave your answer in terms of radian, which is a negative pi over 2, less than or equal than sine inverse x, less than or equal than pi over 2. Right. And for cosine inverse x, it will be cosine inverse x, which is greater or equal than 0 degrees, less than or equal than 180 degrees, or okay, so you just have to memorize it lah. Alright, so question 3 is involve quadratic inequalities. So what are the concepts involving quadratic inequalities? Yes, when you solve quadratic inequalities, you must remember you can't treat it like solving a quadratic equation. So you have to draw the quadratic curve. But first thing first, we need to simplify it. Alright, as like we need to expand the both sides of your inequality, the left side and the right side. So that will give us 2x squared minus x greater or equal than 5 minus 10x. And then we're going to bring everything to the right, the left hand side, sorry. And of course, to factorize it. All right, right. So from here, right, this is a U-shaped curve. Okay, always make the coefficients of x squared positive to get a U-shaped curve. All right, so we have the x-axis and then the U-shaped curve and the two x-intercepts. How do you get the two x-intercept? It's when you let this linear factor equals to 0, you get x equals to negative 5. That's one x-intercept. let this equals to 0. The second x-intercept will be half. Okay, then the next step is look at the region that we're interested in. So above the x-axis is your positive region, below is your negative region. Go back to the original inequality. What we are interested of, it's the positive region, the plus region. Okay, so therefore the answer will come from, the answer is always from the x-axis. We are solving it, but it's all in terms of x. If you look at quadratic inequality in terms of x, so the answer must be in terms of x. So therefore there should be two answers, two sets of inequality here. So therefore the first set of inequality will be x is anything that's less than or equal than -5. All right, then the second one is from here, which is all x is more than or equal than half. Oh, and I missed out the important things. And the important things is that you have to represent your solutions on a number line, right? So if you were to recall the answers we got are x is less than or equal than -5, or x is more than or equal than half, right? So let's draw a number line to represent it. So please use a ruler to draw. And it just indicates the two x-intercept, one that's -5, one is half, right? So your x less than or equal than -half means you're using a solid circle, so it goes to the left. X more than or equal than half means it also includes half, solid circle, then go to the right. So this is how you represent it on the number line. Right, let's look at the next question. This question involves trigonometric ratio. Right, so you're given that sine theta is equal to 1 over k, where k is more than 0. If k is more than 0, basically this is a positive value. It's a positive value. So let's go back to your basic concepts on ASTC, because the ASTC will help us to determine which quadrants the angle, which quadrants the angle should be coming from. So for sine theta to be positive, the angle will come from the first, which is an acute angle, or come from the second, which is an obtuse angle. So in other words, if you have sine of an acute or an obtuse to be positive, then the possible quadrants will be first or second. And then the second condition is cosine theta must be less than 0, means cosine theta is a negative value, right? So if you go back to the ASTC, right, for cosine to get the positive values, the angle will come from the first or the fourth quadrant, and to get the negative will come from second or third. So this one is second or third. And if you were to compare this with this, the intersection of these two values will give you the quadrants that the angle theta is coming from. And of course, quite clearly, you can see that it comes from the second quadrant. So let's draw the diagram. Please use a ruler to draw the diagram. If you've forgotten how to draw the diagram, remember the ribbon that I told you. So from the second quadrant, it will go up here, come down, that's your 90. And the angle theta is an obtuse angle coming from the second quadrant. All right, so we need to label it. For sine theta is 1 over k. So sine is actually adjacent over hypo, right? The ratio that you get. So the adjacent is 1. K is the hypo, which is radius of the circle, is always a positive value. Now, so that comes the tricky part. So here it is negative. So make sure you have a negative there. I've done a video on this type of question. So if you're not too sure, please go and take a look at it. It's called trigonometric ratio in the first, second, third, or fourth quadrant. All right. Right, so to find that value there, we use Pythagoras theorem, which is k squared minus 1 squared. So it gives you negative square root k squared minus 1. All right, so with that, we can find our tangent theta. So our tangent theta is, the value is O over A, opposite, which is 1. Adjacent is negative square root k squared minus 1. Right, usually we will not leave answer as in such. We need to rationalize it. So if you rationalize it, you will get negative square root k squared minus 1 over k squared minus 1. Alright, that means you are actually, when you rationalize it, you're just multiplying with square root k squared minus 1 at the numerator, also at the denominator. Alright, and so square root a times square root a will just gives you a, right? So therefore the denominator will just be k squared minus 1. Numerator is square root k squared minus 1, not forgetting your negative there, which kind of makes sense because in the second quadrant the tangent is a negative value, right? Now, so for secant theta, look at the third letter. Third letter is C. So C it's the first letter of the word cosine. So here we're finding 1 divided by cosine theta. So cosine theta, you get it from getting the answer from adjacent over your hypo. So adjacent is negative square root k squared minus 1 over your hypo, which is k. Right, then we change the division sign to multiplication. We flip the second fraction, so you get negative k over square root. It's one times that, sorry. Okay, there's no skip step, otherwise you'll be wondering why. So change the division to times and flip the fractions. So the answer will be negative k over square root k squared minus 1. And again, it kind of makes sense because cosine theta is a negative value in the second quadrant. Right, so let's look at question 5. Question 5 is questions involving surds. So you're given a cuboid with a square base. So let's draw a cuboid with a square base. Alright, so this square base have length 3 minus square root 2. So since it's a square, if the length is 3 minus square root 2, then the breadth will be 3 minus square root 2 multiplied with the height, which we don't know, let's call it h. So when these three terms multiply together, they'll give you this volume. So to make our calculations less complicated, let's find the area of the square base first. Which is 3 minus square root 2 multiplied with 3 minus square root 2. Alright, that will give you 9 minus 3 square root 2 minus 3 square root 2 plus square root 2 multiplied with another square root 2. So that will give me 9 minus 6 square root 2 plus 2. That gives you 11 minus 6 square root 2. Alright, so this area multiplied with my height will give me my volume, which is 7 plus 14 square root 2. So the next thing is that I need to find height. So I'm going to divide by 11 minus 6 square root 2. Alright, so the next thing is we need to rationalize it. And one thing good about this sort of question is that they actually give you the answer in the sense they don't give you the, they give you the answer and then they actually tell you that A and B are integers. So if you come out your answers are not integers, then you know there's something wrong with the answer. Alright, so we need to rationalize it with the conjugate surd. The conjugate surd for 11 minus 6 square root 2 is 11 plus 6 square root 2. Alright, so we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so the denominator, you can just easily use a calculator to help you evaluate it because the denominator will gives you a rational number. It's like a minus b times a plus b. That gives you a squared minus b squared, which is a rational number. So because in exam we are really running short of time, right? So you don't need to really be too harsh on yourself, show every single step. Anything that can use a calculator to help you, just go ahead and do it. So if you use a calculator to work this out, but of course make sure you punch in key in the number correctly. So that will give you negative 167. Then of course the numerator, you cannot use a calculator. Okay, numerator, you have to expand it. So I'm going to use distributive law to do it. So not everything use calculator. Everything use calculator, then yeah, that will be quite wonderful. Alright, so now let's expand it. So that will give me 77 plus 42 square root 2. 14 times 11, 154 square root 2. Then 14 times 6 times square root 2 times another square root 2. That gives you 168 over negative 167. Alright, so we need to take 168 plus 77 to gives you 245. Okay, and 42 plus 154. 42 plus 154 give you 196. All right, so now we're going to separate it. And you realize that this one doesn't come out to be an integer. That gives you an idea that something is wrong somewhere. So what do you need to do? You have to go back and check. Okay, so let's start off by checking the denominator. Let's key in. So you have to make sure you key in correctly. So bracket 11 minus 6 times square root 2. Close the bracket, open again. 11 plus 6 square root 2. And hey, the denominator is 49. So I actually make a mistake there. So can you see that if you don't get a rational number, that is one way to go back to the questions and check it again and see why. So now we take 245 divided by 49. And yes, it's an integer, which is what the answers told you, where A and B are integers. And then you separate it, take 245 divided by 49 to get 5, and then 196 divided by 49 to get 4. So 5 plus 4 square root 2. Okay, so where your A and B, A is 5, B is 4 are integers. Right, let's look at question 6. So question 6 is questions on radioactive material. So you're given the formula A is equals to A subscript 0 e to the power negative 0.05 t, where t is the time in hours from the start of an experiment. Find the percentage of radiomaterial left after 5 hours. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to substitute t to be 5 first and see what happens. That means when your t is 0 is your initial. When t is 0 means it's at the start of the experiment. Okay, at the start of the experiment. So A will be equals to A subscript e to the power of negative 0.05 times 0 will be 0, which will give you A to the power of 0. Right, kind of makes sense that. Okay, so when t is equals to 5, then your A will be equals to A subscript e to the power negative 0.05 times 5. So we can use calculator to work this out, and you just leave your A to the power of 0 intact. And that gives you 0.7788007. Have more decimal places, because this question is quite what do you call that, a little bit of change will gives you a lot of changes in the degree of accuracy. So leave it as 0.7788008. All right, find the percentage of radioactive material left. The percentage, okay, so how do you find percentage? So percentage is you get the final one divided by the initial one times 100%, right? So your final one is this value here, which is A to the power A subscript 0 times 0.7788008 over your initial. Your initial is A to this one is your initial, then times 100%. So this and this divide each other, this gives you 1. Those are 100% will give you 77.9%. Right, so in part 2 of the question, you're supposed to express t as a functions of A and A subscript. Okay, that means you're supposed to make t as a subject lah. T as a subject of the equation. Okay, there are 2 ways of doing it. First way is okay, I'm going to show you 2 different ways. The first way is just ln both sides. And this one here, you just apply your product law. Okay, your product law. So that gives you ln A plus A subscript plus ln, sorry, Okay, and then because we're going to make t the subject, so I will just minus ln a subscript on both sides. So ln a negative 0.05 t is equals to ln a minus ln a subscript. And then this one I can apply your power law. And this is 1. Ln e is log base EE. Ln is log base E. So that will give me negative 0.05 t equals to ln a minus ln a. And I'm going to get rid of my negative, so I'm going to divide by negative throughout. And so t will be equals to ln a. Okay, we can't leave answer as that. You need to simplify it. So I need to, this one means 1 over 0.05. That gives you 20. So this is one way of doing, which is I think rather long. So an easier way, okay, more efficient way, is to make this a subject first. So in other words, I divide by a subscript on both sides. Okay, then bring ln. You see, you'll see that it's much easier. So when you do A math, you need to know, use the shortest method. Otherwise, you'll find yourself very frustrating. Right, then you use a power law. Right, so ln e is 1, so negative. Okay, so t will be equals to, again, the same thing. Take this divide by negative 0.0. That means it's negative 1 over 0.05, right? Times ln. And that gives you negative 20 ln a over AO. And you will see both answers are the same. I'll show it to you why both answers are the same. Huh? You don't need to continue, but just to convince you that both answers are the same, are equivalent. Some of you will be wondering, hey, are you sure? Yeah, because I'll continue from here to get this step. So I'm going to apply your quotient law here. That will give you ln A minus ln A, right, quotient law. Then you multiply your negative in. That will give you 20 ln A subscript minus ln A. Sorry for squeezing everything through. Yeah, but you can see that they are the same answer. Okay, so you see whichever method that you're comfortable with, you just use it. But for myself, I think I'll use the one in green ink. Right, so let's look at question 7, and actually I just skipped question 6. So I do that because I'm trying to tell you that in the exam, right, you don't really have to diligently do from question 1 all the way, and then question 2, then question 3, question 4. No, you don't have to. Usually we will try to do the questions that you are more confident in. If you just browse through the questions and you feel that, hey, the questions I think I can do one, you just go ahead and do it first. Okay, the questions that are a bit sian one, like for example question 6, I'll go back to question 6 later, but a bit sian one, we just skip it first. So let's look at question 7. I like chapters on indices. Alright, so let's do 7. So by using the substitution u equals to 3 to the power of x, we're supposed to solve this equation. So what is the concept involved here? Yes, the rules of indices. You must know all these things inside your head by now. Okay, and basically what we're going to use, what we're going to apply is this one here. Very useful, okay, when you do this sort of questions. So 3 to the power of 2x plus 1. Alright, so we're going to break this up into 3 to the power of 2x times 3 to the power of 1. And this one further break it up into 3 to the power x times 3 to the power x. Okay, right, y, and then we can do the substitution. So the substitution is just replace 3 to the power x with u. So there will be u times 3 to the power 1 is just 3. So that will give us 3u squared. Bring everything to the left hand side. And of course, the next thing is to factorize it. Right, so you will have u is equals to 1/3. And remember, u is a substituted value. Okay, so you don't stop here. If you stop here, that's it. You don't get your 5 marks. So when u is equals to right, so what we're saying is that 1/3 is equals to 3 to the power x. Okay, we can't do a comparison because you can only do the comparison when the left hand side is expressed as base 3. So 1/3 is 3 to the power negative 1. So therefore x is equals to negative 1. One answer. And when u is equals to 1, right? So 1 is equals to 3 to the power x. Again, you can only compare when you express 1 as base 3. So what is 1 as base 3? Yes, it's 3 to the power of 0. Alright, 8 to the power of 0 gives you 1. So 3 to the power of 0 gives you 1. So therefore x is equals to 0. Okay, right. X on the left hand side. Whatever you need to find one right on the right hand side. Left hand side. Okay, that's how you do it. Right, let's look at 8. Question 8, part I, show that the equation has no real solutions. No real solutions. Okay. So if you don't have to worry about you knowing what is no real solutions or real solutions. Don't have to worry about that. You just basically, go and solve this equation. Just do like that. So to solve these equations, you need to know all the laws, the logarithmic laws, the product law, the quotient law, and the power law. Right, let's do a very quick recap. If you got log base A, that will give you log base AM plus, right? The quotient one. So you need to know all this at the fingertips. Power law. Right, and also of course change your base. Okay, so all this you must know at the fingertips. Okay, right, so if you look at these questions here, we can't actually apply power law, not power law, product law here. We cannot apply product law because they have different base. One is base 2, one is base x. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my base 2 to, no, I'll prefer to change base x to base 2. You can also do it the other way around, but I think it's easier if you change your base x to base 2. I did explain that in one of my videos. Okay, just change it to base 2. Alright, and here I'm going to use substitution. Substitution is a very wonderful method. Okay, when everything else fails, just use substitution method. So I'm just going to let log base 2x to be the letter A. So I actually have A plus, and log 2 base 2 is 1. Okay, log A base A is 1. So therefore log 2 base 2 is 1. So 1 over A equals to 1. Right, then multiply by A throughout. I will have A squared plus 1 equals to A. Bring everything to the left hand side. Alright, so this is what you get. And from there, you're supposed to factorize it, right? Yeah, but we have a problem. And the problem is that we can't actually, if you use your calculator to help you, it will just give you some funny answer, erroneous answer. which means that this equation has no solution. But you can't write there and say, the calculator tells us so. So we have to use another way to show there is no real solution, right? So in which topics, which concepts you learn about having no real solutions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Discriminant. Remember discriminant? If the value of the discriminant is less than 0, then the particular equation has no real solution. So we're going to find the discriminants for a squared minus a plus 1. So b squared minus 4ac. B is the coefficients of your a, which is negative 1 squared minus 4. C is 1. And yeah, hey, we get negative 3, which is less than 0. So that's explained. So since b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, the above equations has no real solutions, and hence, because a is a substituted value for log x base 2, so if a squared minus a plus 1 equals 0 has no real solutions, so of course your log base 2x plus log base x to the power 1 also has no real solution. Would have no real solution. Okay, so this is how we do it. Alright, let's look at part 2. For the functions, blah blah blah, explain clearly why the values of x must be more than 0 and less than 4/5. Okay, so this one basically is your understanding of how log is being defined. So I also have a video which explains that, but never mind, let's do a recap. Right, so for log base AY to be defined, right, there's certain things we need to follow, and that is a cannot be equals to 1 and a must be positive, y must also be positive. Alright, so therefore, if you look at what we're given, so for log x bracket 4 minus 5x to be defined, right, our x must be more than 0, x cannot be equals to 1, and also 4 minus 5x must be more than 0. So let's solve it. So that will be negative 5x more than negative 4 multiplied by negative throughout. Then you have to flip your inequality sign, and x is less than 4/5. Right, so if you combine, okay, combine this and this, so therefore your x must be more than 0, x less than 4/5, and we also need to say that x cannot be equals to 1. Right, let's look at question 9. Question 9 is partial fraction, and that's my favorite. So to do the partial fractions correctly, let's examine the denominator. So the denominator comprises of a irreducible factor. Irreducible factors usually are like x squared plus something, x squared plus 4, x squared plus 3, right? And then the other one is a linear factor. Right, so we can express it in the form ax plus b over your irreducible factor, and then linear, since you already used the letter a, b, and then left c over your linear factor. And then the next thing is combine them. We've forgotten how to do this also. I do have a video on that. Please just check it out. The only thing very, very important is you need to bracket this. Okay, put 2 arrows there. You need to bracket it. Okay, bracket it. Right, so multiply with bracket x. Also, you'll need to bracket the x minus 1 plus c bracket x squared plus 5. Alright, so these two are equivalent. Okay, the fractions given to you and these two partial fractions are equivalent. So therefore, we can just compare the numerator, which is a bracket x. Okay, don't write wrongly. Write wrongly, have to redo. My goodness. Bracket ax plus b times x minus 1 plus c. Alright, so we're going to use substitution. So we're going to let x equals to 1. Basically, if I let x equals to 1, then this whole chunk of thing will be gone. Bye-bye. Right, so I will have c bracket 1 squared, that's 1 plus 5, give me 6. that will be 6 minus 7 plus 13. So 6c, it's negative 1 plus 13 give you 12. C is equals to 2. All right, then I'm going to let, okay, use a different color, make life more fun. Let x equals to 0. The reason is I want to eliminate my a, so I only left with b. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Already found c, put it in. X is 0, so 5. So the rest of 0 is 0 plus 13, 13. So negative b plus 10 gives you 13. Negative b equals to 3. B equals to negative 3. Okay, so I found the values of A and B. Found the values of B and C. I just need to find A. So to find A, I can just let X to be any value. I think I need more space. I'm just going to let X to be equals to 2. Alright, so equals to 2. So I would have 2A. The values of B, it's negative 3. 2 minus 1 is 1 plus 2. 2 squared is 4 plus 5, 9. 6 times. Okay, this one I don't attempt really. I just use calculator to help me. Okay, so I would have 6 times 4 minus 14 plus 13. 23. This will be 18. This will be 2a minus 3. So 2a minus 3. 23 minus 18. 5. That will give you 2a equals to 8. A equals to 4. Alright, so with all this found, okay, therefore the partial fractions are, you must always have the last part, no? This is the last part, which is very important. You must always answer to the question asked. So the partial fractions are, okay, your A is 4, so 4x. B is negative 3, 4x minus 3 over x squared plus 5, and then plus 2 over x minus 1. Okay. Right, so question 10. Question 10 is a questions on quadratic equations. Right, you're given the equations y equals to negative x squared plus 5x plus 0.5. So I think that's an n-shaped curve. N-shaped curve because the coefficients of x squared is negative 1. Alright, x is the horizontal distance traveled. So basically, you just imagine you are here, and then just throw a stone doing all the way up, and then drop down. Right, so this distance is your x. Okay, and then that will be your highest point. The stone will reach your highest point and then drop down again. Alright, express the functions. Oh, so you ask to perform completing the square to this quadratic curve. Okay, so let's do it. It's not difficult. Right, so you just need to know the rules well. And to know the rules for completing the square, it's you have to make the coefficients of x squared positive 1. That's very important. Okay, make the coefficients of x squared positive 1. So I need to factorize negative out. Okay, we don't bother about 0.5. We leave it far, far away because we just need to complete the square for these two terms. Okay, and how do you complete it? Do you remember the steps? Okay, the steps. Huge square bracket first. X squared minus 5x. Okay, there are two ways of doing it. I will prefer the second method. The second method is we know that it must be something squared and then minus something squared, right? And then plus 0.5. Okay, I think the second method is easier. So what is inside this square is just basically x. Here, x. Here, minus, and then take 5 divided by 2. Okay, so minus what? So minus actually negative 5 over 2. Square it. Okay, then the next step is you have to multiply the negative into the square bracket. This and this will become positive. This one, just use a calculator to work this out. (25 over 4). And then if you simplify it further, 27. Okay, so this is how you do it. Right, so if you remember the diagram that I've drawn for you, right, so you're here with the stone, and then the stone will go up, reach the maximum point, and then drop to the ground again, right? So this maximum point is this point here. So therefore your maximum height, this is your maximum height. So the maximum height is actually your y coordinates, right? So therefore the maximum height that the stone can reach is equals to 27 over 4, I think it's in meter, all right? And find the horizontal distance that the stone has traveled when it lands. I mean, horizontal distance means this distance here. So this distance is when you let your y equals to 0, because the y represents the height, right? So when you drop to the ground is when the height is 0. Okay, so to find the horizontal distance means you let y equals to 0. Right, so negative bracket plus 27 over 4 equals to 0. Multiply by negative on both sides. Alright, so how do we do it? The opposite of square is square root, right? So it's possible to get two answers, one positive, one negative. So your first value will be x equals to positive 27 over 4 plus 5 over 2. Second answer will be negative. Okay, so that work out the answer. You should get 5.098. Second answer would be negative 0.098. So of course we have to reject this answer lah. Okay, right? Because we're talking about horizontal distance is a positive value. So therefore your horizontal distance would be three significant figure. Okay, 5.10 meter. Right, so what this saying is that we have a drone that's flying 3 meter horizontally from the start point of the stone at a height of 4 meter above the ground. Explain if it's possible for the stone to hit the drone. So you're saying that if you were to look at the initial diagram again, okay, oh my goodness, I think I can do better than that. Let me draw the person properly. So the stone reached up at the highest point and then come down, right? So the highest point is 5 over 2 comma 27 over 4. So we are saying that you have a drone here. It starts at 3 meter. Here 4 meter. So this is your drone. Sorry, I don't know how to draw one. Oh my god, I think I can do better than that. Like this. Okay, anyway, never mind, doesn't matter. So that is your drone. So we want to see if it can possible for the stone to hit the drone. Alright, so what we're going to do is that we're going to substitute x equals to 3 meter into your equations of your stone. This is the equations, right, for the stone. And see when it's at 3 meter, what is the height of the stone. If the height of the stone is 4 meter, then of course it hit it, right? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to substitute x equals to 3 to the above to see what is the height of the stone when it is 3 meter from the ground. And we get 6.5. That means the stone, when the stone is 3 meter from the ground, it is a height of 6.5 meter, which is above the 4 meter, right? So we explained that since 6.5 meter is above the 4 meter, which is the height of the drone, the stone is above the drone. So of course you can't hit it lah. The stone is not possible to hit the drone. Okay, basically at 3 meter, the stone it's let me draw a better diagram. At 3 meter, the stone is here. I'll use a different color. The stone is here. The stone is 6 meter. Okay, I'm a stone. I am the stone. Okay, so it's actually above your drone, so it will not, the stone is not possible to hit the drone. Full stop. Right, let's look at the next question. This one here, you have equations of the curve y equals to 3x squared plus 2x plus a, where a is a constant. Find the set of values of a for which y is positive for all real values of x. Okay, when they say all real values of x, please do not confuse yourself with all real solutions, or not solution, or all real roots. Okay, all real roots has nothing to do with all real values of x. When they say all real values of x, means I can just substitute x to be any values on your x-axis. You see, when you draw your curve, you have the x-axis and the y-axis, right? When you say all real values of x, means your x can be any values here. Okay, basically, don't confuse it with your real roots or no real roots, that kind of thing. Okay, right? So it says that you want your y to be positive. Y is positive means y must be more than 0, right? Y is negative means y less than 0. So y positive means y might more than 0. So basically, what you're saying is that you want this curve, the parts of the curve, you want the parts of the curve to be above the x-axis. And since this is a U-shaped curve, that means you want the curve to be always positive. So this is how the curve will look like. And for a curve to be always positive, that means it has no real roots. Okay, it can have all real values of x. Okay, it can have all real values of x, just that this curve has no real roots. So no real roots means what kind of value do you use for discriminants? Yes, you use the value to be less than 0. So this is what exactly we're going to do. Okay, multiply by negative. Make sure you flip your inequality sign, divide by 12. You get 1/3. Okay. Right, so in part 2 of the questions, we need to substitute a equals to 4 and find the values of b for which the line is a tangent to the curve. Alright, so what do you understand about a line being a tangent to the curve? Yes, when the line is a tangent to the curve, means the line will touch the curve at only one point. And if the curve and the line touch at one point, means there's only two real, but the roots is repeated. Okay, and if you have two real and repeated roots, what would the values of a discriminant be? Yes, the value of the discriminant will be b squared minus 4ac equals to 0. Okay, so that substitute your a to be 4 first. So you have y equals to 3x squared plus 2x plus 4. That's equation 1. And then this is your second equation. So we're going to let 1 equals to 2. Okay, we're going to sub into this b squared minus 4 is equal to 0. And let's see what happened. B is the coefficients of x. So A is 3. C's are all your constants without the x squared, without the x term there. Let's simplify. 3.25. Okay, that's how you do it. Right, so the third part of the questions mentions that there's a straight line L, and this L meets the curve only at one point. However, this line is not a tangent line. Usually when we say a line that meets the curve at one point is a tangent line as such, right? All these are tangent line, right? So what they are saying now is that no, this line is not a tangent line. So if this line is not a tangent line, then how would you draw a line such that only meets the curve at one point? If we draw it this way, it meets 2 points, right? Yeah. So I believe we can only draw it this direction. So how do you describe this kind of line? So I think it's easier to describe it as a vertical line. You can't say it's slanted line. So, right, but a vertical line will also meet the curve at one point, right? So therefore, what can you deduce about the line L? So L is a vertical line. Okay. Right, let's look at the next question. This one, it's using monomial theorem to expand the first three terms of the expansion. Okay, the only thing to watch out for is that this is a negative 3x. Alright, so let's write down the formula. The theorem will be given to you in the formula sheet. So that is, you don't really have to memorize it, but I think it's good. You can remember it. But it's good to check it again with the formula given, because sometimes you may remember it wrongly. But unless it's not given to you, then you can't check it. But if it's given to you, then you can check it to make sure that you use it correctly. Alright, so we're going to use this to expand 2 minus 3x to the power 8. So we're going to substitute your a to be 2. So it's 2 to the power 8. Then 8 choose 1, 2 to the power 8 minus 1 times negative 3x. Okay, this is what I mean just now when I asked you to be careful about it. To the power 1, then plus 8, 2 to the power 8 minus 2 negative 3x. Alright, so basically you can just use a calculator to evaluate that. So 2 to the power of 8 will gives you 256. And also you can use a calculator to evaluate it. That will be 8 shift NCR 1 on the calculator, that is 8 to the power 7 gives you 128. Then negative 3x. Okay, 8 shift NCR 2, that will be 28. And 2 to the power of 6 will be 64. So basically this one here means negative 3x with another negative 3x. So that will give you positive 9x squared. Alright, so if you were to simplify further, okay, it's not that I don't want to write properly, it's just that I can't touch the screen with the stylus pen. And I think I'm already doing a very good job. 8 times 1, 2, 8 times negative 3, negative, okay, positive some negatives, negative 3, 0, 7, 2x plus 16128x squared. Alright, so that's how we do it for the first part. First, for the second part, you're supposed to use whatever you have expanded, multiply with 1 plus 8x, and the final answers are these three terms here. And from there, we're supposed to find the two unknowns, a and b. Okay, so that's not difficult, right? So 1 plus 8x multiply with 256 minus 3072x plus 16128x squared. Okay, so by now you should be proficient in doing expansion. So I'm not going to do further explanation. I'm just going to expand it out. So I will have 256 plus 2568x minus 3072x minus 3072ax squared plus 16128x squared. All right, we don't need the last term because that will give us x cubed. Okay, because the terms given are just up to x squared only. Okay, so let's do a comparison. Of course, 256 is compared with 256. Then all my x term here will be compared with this. And then this one here, the one in green, will be compared with this. Okay, so let's do it. So I have 256ax minus 3072x equals to negative 2944x. I divide by x throughout, so get 256a equals to negative 2944 plus 3072. That gives you 128. So a will be 128 divided by 256 gives you half. Alright, so that's fine. And then negative 3072a, so we multiply a with half x squared. I'm going to divide throughout x squared throughout. Okay, so skip one step there, plus 16128 give me b. So therefore b would just be negative 3072 times 0.5 plus 16128, and that gives you 14592 for the values of b. Alright, let's look at question 13. Question 13 is a question of coordinate geometry. You're given 2 points there. The perpendicular bisector of AB intersects the line at point C. Find the coordinates of C. So sometimes it's very difficult to visualize, so it's best to just sketch the diagram. You don't need to be very accurate, okay? Just sketch the diagram will do. So we have 2 points there. One point is negative 1, 5, negative 1, 5. So roughly here. Another point, it's 4, negative 2. Alright, so basically you need to draw a line joining these 2 points. Okay. Right. And the perpendicular bisector of AB, so meaning you have another line that will cut through AB. Okay, perpendicular bisector means divide the line segment AB into 2 equal half. And this line will intersect another line which has a negative gradient, and when you substitute x to be 0, the y-intercept is 12. Okay, so how do I draw another line with negative gradient and touches through? I think I need to draw my... Okay, so I have another line that touches 12, maybe something like this. Okay, right, and that is point C. Alright, you don't need to be very accurate. You can't be accurate anyway because you don't know exactly where point C is. So, but you have a rough idea of what you need to do lah. So find the coordinates of C. So basically, you just need to find the equations of the perpendicular bisector, solve it simultaneously with the line y equals to negative 4 over 7x plus 12, because your point C is the intersection point of the line y equals to negative 4 over 7x plus 12 and the perpendicular bisector. Okay, so to find the equations of a perpendicular bisector, we need to know the gradient. So let's find the gradients of AB, which is your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So by now, you should be very good with that. 5 minus minus 2, negative 1 minus 4. So that gives you 7 over negative 5. So therefore, the gradient of your perpendicular bisector will be negative 1 divided by negative 7 over 5. Okay, that will gives you 5 over 7. Alright, and I also need the midpoint of AB. Okay, the formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So negative 1 plus 4 divided by 2. y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So that gives you 3 over 2. Right, so with the gradient and the midpoint, I can just go ahead to find equations of my perpendicular bisector. y minus y1 equals to gradient x minus x1, where your x1, y1 is your midpoint. So y minus 3 over 2 equals to gradient 5 over 7, x minus 3 over 2. So that simplified it. Plus 3 over 7. Okay, so I'm going to call this equation 2 and this one 1, and I solve these two equations simultaneously, I'll get my point C. Right, so I'm going to let 1 equals to 2. So I would have 5 over 7x plus 3 over 7 equals to negative 4 over 7x plus 12. Okay, group your x together, group your x term together. So that will gives you 9 over 7x. 12 minus 3 over 7, 81 over 7. So x will be 81 over 7. Divide by 9 over 7. It gives you 9. And then you substitute x equals to 9 into your equation 1 or 2. And you would get, sorry, no, there's not much space left. So I have to do it that way. Negative 48 over 7. So therefore, your point C is 9, 48 over 7. Alright, so we have found the coordinates of point C, which is 9, 48 over 7. The next thing is to ask to find the area of the triangle ABC. Right, so to find area of triangle ABC, I'm going to use the shoelace method. Alright, which is easier since I know all the 3 points already. So to use the shoelace method, make sure you arrange the coordinates in the anti-clockwise direction. So the area, the formula is there's a half there and then 2 vertical lines. Arrange the coordinates in anti-clockwise direction. You can start with point A, which is negative 1, 5, go to point B, 4, negative 2, go to point C, and back to point A. Alright, and we know the answer would have to be this, something squared minus something squared, right? So what is inside the first bracket is this direction. So you just use a calculator to work it out. Okay, there's no square there. What am I talking? It's not completing the square. So it's something bracket minus something bracket. So the first bracket is the direction there, the one I highlighted for you, which is just negative 1. You just use a calculator to work out, okay? Don't need to write down all the steps. Just key into the calculator negative 1, then times negative 2, then plus 4 times fraction 88 over 7, then plus 9 times 5, okay? So that will gives you 521 over 7. Alright, then the other bracket is for this direction, the one in green. So again, just use a calculator. 4 times 5, then plus 9 times negative 2 plus negative 1 times 48 over 7. That will give you negative 34 over 7. Right, then you can use your calculator further with a half in front. Bracket fraction 521 over 7 minus bracket negative 34 over 7 bracket, and that gives you really? Oh no, I make a mistake. 1 divided by 2 bracket. have to make sure it came correctly. That's why you have to use the calculator frequently. 39. What a weird answer. 39, 9, and 14 unit square. Okay, this is how you do it. Alright, question 14 is a question of polynomial. Right, it's given by a function 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 14x plus 65. That is a cubic polynomial. Find the remainder when fx is divided by f minus 3. Okay, that's easy, right? We learned in remainder theorem that when they substitute, that means I let this guy equal to 0, x will be 3, right? So when they substitute f to be 3, that will be my remainder, right? Okay, so let's write it properly. So remainder is equals to f of 3. That is when they substitute all your x value with 3. So they will give you 3 bracket 3 cubed minus 10 bracket 3 squared plus 14 bracket 3 plus 65. And that gives you 98. That will be the remainder. Alright, show that 3x plus 5 is a factor. Okay, so factor theorem says that if this guy is a factor, means the remainder is 0, right? So we're just going to substitute. Substitute x equals to negative 5 over 3. You just let it equal to 0. Okay, so we get x equals to negative 5 over 3. So f of negative 5 over 3, just substitute inside the whole chunk of thing. Yes, you will get equals to 0. Alright, so you need to do some explanation. So since remainder is equals to 0, using factor theorem, is a factor of f of x. Okay. Right, so we're supposed to show that the equations of x equals to 0 has only one real root. Right, so we are told that this particular polynomial has 3x plus 5 as a factor. So you can use long divisions or compact coefficients to find the quadratic factor. Right, here I'm just going to use a long division, but when you use long division, you just have to be careful with your calculations. So you're going to divide with 3x plus 5. So I can multiply it with multiply with x squared. Okay, and that will give me negative 15x squared plus 14x. Multiply with negative 5x. That will give me 39x plus 65. Again, 13. Alright, so therefore your 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 14x plus 65 can be factorized into 3x plus 5 and x squared minus 5x plus 13. You can factorize this further. Oh, we cannot factorize it further. That's why the question says that there's only one real root. So how do we continue from here? So we say that when f of x is equals to 0, we are saying that this guy is equals to 0 or this equal to 0, right? So here we get x equals to negative 5 over 3. Here we just use discriminant to find the roots. for x squared minus 5x plus 13 equals to 0, the values of discriminant is negative 27, which is less than 0. So this equation has no real roots. So we need to do an explanation. So since x squared minus 5x plus 13 equals to 0 has no real roots, comma, x equals to negative 5 over 13, it's the only one real root. Okay, that's how you do it. Alright, this one should be easy. Find the least and greatest value of fx. Your fx is 4 sine 2x. So the greatest value of f of x will be just 4 times 1, because the greatest value of sine 2x is 1, so that will be 4. And the least value of f of x will be 4 times negative 1, negative 4. The greatest value of gx will be 2 times 1 plus 1, because the greatest value of cosine, this one, the greatest value of this is 1. So 2 times 1 plus 1, so that gives you 3. The least value of g of x will be 2 times negative 1 plus 1, that gives you negative 1. Okay, the period. Alright, you're not told the unit, so we can leave it in degree or radian. So the period of fx will be 360 degrees divided by b. The b, 360 degrees divided by b. B is the coefficients of x. B is the coefficients of x here, which is 2. So 360 divided by 2. So the period is 180. That means from 0 to 180, there's one cycle. And then the period of g of x is also 360 divided by b, which is 360 divided by half. Okay, here you have to write it as 2 cosine half times x. Okay, x over 2 is half x. X over 2 is half x. So the coefficients of x is half. So 360 divided by half is 720. Alright, let's look at the last part of your curve sketching. So you're supposed to sketch both of this curve, right? And the range given, you must follow this range. The range given is between 0 to 360. So from the earlier part, we managed to find the period for fx. The period for fx is 180. And the period for gx is 720. We're supposed to sketch between 0 to 360. So I think we can just divide it like that. Okay, and again divide into 4 quadrants. Because one cycle is 4 quadrants. One cycle is 4 quadrants, so that will be 90, 45, 135. Okay, for sine, let's sketch sine first. I'm going to use purple color to sketch the sine curve. So just so we know that the maximum value for sine is positive 4. Minimum value for sine is negative 4. Alright, so when x is 0, you substitute x to be 0. So 4 times sine 0 will give you 0. So this is your first point. When substitute your x to be 45, 4 times sine 90, that will give you your maximum value 4. So 1 point here. When you substitute x to be 90, sine 180 is 0, 0 times 4 is 0. Okay, when you substitute your x to be 135, 4 times sine 270 will be negative 4. And then back to 180. Sine 360 will be 0, 0 times 4 is 0. So this is your sine curve. And because you're supposed to sketch until 360, so we need another cycle. So another 4 quadrant, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Right, so the cycle repeats itself. Alright, so it's important, I think, to write down this value here. So the difference between one quadrant is between 0 to 45. So 180 plus 45 will give you 225 plus another 45, 270 plus another 45, 315. Okay, so that is a sine curve, so you need to label it. Because there are two curves here, so it's good to label it. So that is y equals to fx. Right, so I'm going to use a different color to sketch your cosine curve. So for cosine curve, remember the period is 720. That means 720 is one cycle. So 360 will be half a cycle. Right, so if you're not too sure how to sketch it, one easy way is you just substitute values of x. When the x is 0, that is where you get the maximum gx to be 3, right? Because 2 times cosine 0 plus 1 give you the greatest value to be 3, right? So when the x is 0, your first point will be here. Okay? You don't have to substitute all the points 45, 90, don't need to. The next point maybe you want to substitute is 90. So you substitute 90 into here. So 2 times cosine 90. Oh, you may not want to substitute 90 because you end up getting cosine 45. So substitute 45 lah. So it will be 2 times, oh no, not 45, what am I talking? 180, substitute 180. So that will be 2 times cosine 180 divided by 2 plus 1. 1. That's why we get the minimum value. The minimum value is 1. So 180 is 1. Here. Okay, I don't have a ruler. As I can't touch the screen with anything. Right, but if you have a ruler, you can do dotted lines to help you. Right. 1. This is 3. So I think I need to draw my 3 higher up a bit. Okay. Right. And then substitute 360. So now substitute this guy to be 360. So 2 times cosine bracket 360 divided by 2 plus 1. Negative 1. So 360 will give you negative 1, which is the minimum value. Yeah, sorry. The least value. The least value of gx is negative 1. Remember when you say this one is negative 1. So negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Yeah, sorry. So you join your curve, your cosine curve, the shape is like that. Okay, so make sure you join it properly like that. Okay. Right, so that would be your y equals to g of x. Okay, that's how you do it. Alright, so let's look at the last questions, which is questions on circle. You're given equations of a circle in the general form, so find the coordinates of A and the radius of circle. So I think it's easiest, the easy way of doing it is to compare it with the general form of the equations of the circle, which is x squared plus y squared plus 2gx plus 2fy plus c equals to 0. So therefore your 2gx will be compared with a negative 4x. Your 2fy will be compared with 8y, and c is equals to negative 5. Okay, so with that, divide by 2x on both sides. G is negative 2, divide by 2y on both sides, f is equals to 4. So radius is equals to g squared plus f squared minus c. So that gives you bracket negative 2 squared plus 4 squared minus bracket negative 5, and that will give you 5. So therefore a will be negative. To find the center A is negative g comma negative f, that will gives you 2 comma negative 4, and radius equals to 5 units. Alright, second part is to show that the point lies on the circle. So there are two ways of doing it. One way is just substitute this point, substitute your 5 to be x, your y to be 0 into the equations, and see if your right hand side is 0. That's the easiest way. Another way, of course, is to find the distance, the center. That means you find the distance PCI and show that it's equals to 5 units. Okay, I'm just going to show you both ways. So the first way is substitute x equals to 5, y equals to 0 into the equations of the circle. So I would have 5 squared plus 0 squared minus 4 times 5 plus 8 times 0 minus 5. And that gives you, yes, 0. Right, so then you have to do an explanation. So since the points satisfy the equations, since your point P satisfy the equation, because your right hand side you get is a 0, which is tallies with what the equations give you. Since P bracket 5 comma 0 satisfy the equation, the point P, so P lies on the circle. Alright, so another way of doing it is this, and that it's a second way. You just basically find distance C1P, which is x1 minus x2 squared, right? So 2 minus 5 squared plus y2 minus y1, so negative 4 minus 0 squared. And that actually give you 5. Okay, which is equals to 5, which is equals to the radius of the circle. Then you can say therefore P lies on the circle. Okay, so what happened is that if the distance you found is more than the radius, then the P will be outside the circle. If the radius, not radius, if the distance you found, that C1P, right, if the distance you find it's more than the radius, then the point will be outside the circle. If the distance is less than 5, then the point is inside the circle. If the distance equals to 5, which is equals to the radius of the circle, then of course the point will lie on the circle, the circumference of the circle. That means on the circle. So let's look at part 3. So part 3, we are told that the equations, there's a tangent. So we just draw a circle first. We have a circle. Ayo, don't use yellow lah, I can't see properly. Okay, we have a circle, and then the center we found out to be 2, negative 4, right? And then we have a point that it's 5, 0. There's a point P here. And then there's a tangent line. Okay, I think I'm getting very bad at drawing these days. Alright. So we're supposed to find the equations of this tangent line. Okay, that's quite easy. Right, the radius is perpendicular to the tangent. So we can basically find the gradients of your AP, and from there we can find the equations of the tangent. So equations, the gradients of AP will be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That gives you negative 4 over negative 3 gives you 4/3. So therefore your gradients of your tangent line, because they're perpendicular to each other, right? will be -1 divided by 4/3 gives you -3/4. And we're already given the point P, so it's quite easy now to find equation of the tangent line. Which basically will be just y minus y1 equals to gradient x minus x1. Then where your x1, y1 is basically just the point P. So y minus 0 equals to -3/4 x minus 5. So you simplify. And that's it. That's the answer. Okay. Right, let's look at the last part of the question. So the last part of the questions involve another circle. You have a second circle called C2, and this circle has diameter PQ, where Q is the point 5, -8. Alright, so let's identify where is P first. So you're given P to be 50, right? P to be 50. So 50 is here. And then you have another point that is 5, -8. Q. So this one is a vertical line. Okay, and this circle passes. The circle is. Wait, didn't I say I'm getting very bad at drawing? Okay, we have a circle that passes through PQ. Okay, so PQ is the diameter, meaning the center of the circle will be somewhere here, which is the midpoint of PQ. The center of the midpoint of PQ, and that is your circle C2. X equals to K. X equals to K. So X equals to K is a vertical line. It's a tangent to C2. Oh, so find the possible values of K. Alright, so you can have, that means if you look at the diagram, you can have one here, right? This is also a vertical line. It cuts basically tangent line is a line that cuts the circle at one point lah. Okay, so you can have one line like that. You can have a second one here. So you're asked to find the values of K. Alright, so we need to find the radius first. To find the radius. So the radius is just from here to here, right? That would be a radius. Which is basically just so the total distance it's 8 units. Can you see? This is a vertical line. So to here, can you see it's -8 means 8 units. So this will be -4. That means the center is 5. The center of the circle is, let me erase all this. Or you can use the midpoint theorem lah. 5 plus 5 divided by 2, that gives you 5. Then 0 plus minus 8 divided by 2 gives you -4. So that means the center is 5, -4. So in other words, the radius is actually 4 units. The radius is 4 units. So what we are saying is the radius of the circle is 4 units. So from here to here is 4 units. And yet from here to here is 5 units because your point P, it's the x coordinate of P is 5, right? So that is 5 units. So this little space here, I should have drawn the bigger diagram. This little space here is just 5 minus 4 gives you 1. So one possible values of K is x equals to 1. So K can be equals to 1. That's one possible value. The second value will be alright, we already know here to here it's 4 units. 4 units plus 5, that will be 9. So a second possible answer will be x equals to 4 units, which is the radius of the circle, plus, you know, the point P is 5 units here. So 4 plus 5 gives you 9. So a second possible answer for K is equals to 9.